Good morning, my dear students. Today we are continuing with our chapter, The French Revolution. Students, today I will explain you a directory roles and a role of women in revolution. Now, students, the fall of the Jacobin government allowed the wealthier middle classes to seize power. A new constitution was introduced which denied the vote to non-proprietaried section of society. It provided for two elected legislative councils. These then appointed a directory and executive made up of five members. This was meant as a safeguard against the concentration of power in a one man executive as under the Jacobins. However, the directors often clash with the legislative councils, who then sought to dismiss them. The political instability of the directory paved the way for the rise of a military dictator, Napoleon Bonaparte. Through all these changes in the form of government, the ideals of freedom, of equality before the law, and the fraternity remained inspiring ideals that motivated political movement in France and the rest of Europe during the following century. Now, students, role of women. Role of women in revolution. From very beginning, women were active participants in the events which brought about so many important changes in French society. They hoped that their involvement would pressurize the revolutionary government to introduce measures to improve their lives. Most women of the third state had to work for living. They worked as seamstresses or laundresses, sold flowers, fruits, and vegetables at the market, or were employed as a domestic servants in the houses of prosperous people. Working women had also to care for their families, that is, cook, fetch water, queue up for the bread, and look after the children. Their wages were very were lower than those of men. Now, in order to discuss and voice their interests, women started their own political club and newspapers. About 60 women's clubs came up in different French cities. The Society of Revolutionary and Republican Women was the most famous of them. One of their main demands was that women enjoy the same political right as men. Women were disappointed that the Constitution of 1791 reduced them to passive citizens. They demanded the right to vote, to be elected to the assembly, and to hold political office. Only then they felt would their interests be represented in the new government. Now, in the early years, the revolutionary government did introduce laws that helped improve the lives of women. Together with the creation of state schools, schooling was made compulsory for all girls. Their father could no longer force them into marriage against their will. Marriage was made into a contract entered into freely and registered under civil law. Divorce was made legal and could be applied for both man and woman. Women could now train for jobs, could become artists or run small businesses. Now women struggle for equal political rights. However, continued. Women's movement women's movements for voting right and equal wages continue through the next 200 years in many countries of the world. The fight for the vote was carried out through an international suffrage movement during the late 19th and early 20th century. The example of the political activities of French women during the Revolutionary year was kept alive as an inspiring memory. It was finally in 1946 that women in France won the right to vote. Thank you, students.